Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's patron shoutout goes to Tristan B. Thanks Tristan for supporting the channel. In today's game we have Maximus, Mika, and Mathieu joining me for a battle of the M's. And Maximus is playing the Dragon, keeping Path of Ancestry, Rogan Triome, Jetmir's Garden, Hollowed Fountain, Soul Ring, Winds of Abandon, and Udvara Hellkite. Mika is playing his Athreos deck, keeping Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, Plains, Swamp, Orzhov Cluestone, Moment to Folly, Dam, and a False Prophet. Mathieu is playing Rilsa Rael, keeping his Swiftfoot Boots, Island, Rapid Hybridization, Zentrum Bandit, Vraska's Fall, Swamp, and Dimir Aqueduct. And finally, I am playing Brenard, keeping Temple Garden, Yavimaya Coast, 2 Plains, Displaced Dinosaur, Eternal Witness, and Rhystic Study. Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused Magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy-to-use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Maximus wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a tap Path of Ancestry. Mika just plays a tap Memorial to Folly. Mathieu draws, and also plays a tap Path of Ancestry. I don't want to break from the mold, so I play my Temple Garden tapped, and pass. Max draws and plays a Jetmir's Garden. He then casts Soul Ring, and passes. Mika plays a Swamp. Mathieu also plays a Swamp, and casts his Zentrum Bandit, scrying 1 from the Path of Ancestry as he casts it. He passes after that. I just play a Flooded Grove. Maximus draws, and plays a Dryad of Iliacean Grove. He then plays a Rogan Triome, and then shocks out a Hollowed Fountain. With those out, he then uses Winds of Abandon and targets the Bandit. This has Mathieu going to find a Swamp, and Max then passes. Mika draws and plays a Plains. He then pays 3 for an Orzhov Cluestone, and passes. Mathieu plays a Swiftfoot Boots, and then drops a Dimir Aqueduct, bouncing his Swamp back to hand and passing to me. I draw, play a Plains, and cast Rhystic Study. Max draws and plays a Guardian Project, paying the 1 for the study. He then plays a tap Savai Triome, and passes. Mika just pays 2 for an Orzhov Signet, paying the 1 for the study tax, and passes. Mathieu draws, and plays a Temple of Deceit, scrying 1. He then casts a Fog Bank, and pays the 1 for it, so Maximus fist bumps everyone for paying their taxes properly. Mathieu then equips the Fog Bank with the Swiftfoot Boots, and passes to me. I draw and play a Sea of Clouds. I then play City of Death, which makes me a treasure, and I pass to Max. Max draws and plays an Island. He then casts Drakaseth, not paying the 1, which has me drawing a card, and he then draws from the Guardian Project. He then goes to combat. He tests Mathieu's resolve by attacking him with the Dryad, and Fogbank is more than happy to block. With nothing else, Max passes. Mika draws and plays a Plains. He then casts Athreos, not paying the 1 for the Rhystic Study once again, and I get to draw a card. Moving to his end step, he puts a coin counter onto Drakaseth, and passes. Mathieu draws, and plays an Island. He casts Rilsa Rael, paying the 1, and as she comes in, he gains the initiative. He goes into the Undercity, finding a Swamp for hand, and passing. I draw for turn, and in my main phase, tick up the City of Death, and make another treasure token. I then cast Solemn Simulacrum, and then play a Forest before going to find one from my library. Maximus draws and plays an Udvara Hellkite, and pays the 1 for the study tax. In response, I cast Arcane Denial to counter it, and Max then goes to combat. This time around he swings Drakaseth at me, dealing 4 to me, 3 to Mika, and 3 to Mathieu. I then take another 7 from combat damage, and after combat, Max then plays a tap Steam Vents, and passes. Max and I draw from the Arcane Denial triggers on Mika's upkeep, he casts a False Prophet, paying the 1, and then moves through his phases. During his end step, he puts a coin counter onto my Solemn, and passes turn. Mathieu goes through the Undercity more, and puts 2 +1/+1 counters onto Rilsa Rael during his upkeep from the Undercity, and then draws for turn. He plays a Swamp, and then sits back on his mana and passes to me. I draw and get to make another treasure token from the City of Death. I then play Displaced Dinosaurs and pass turn. Max draws and plays a Hellkite Courser, not paying the 1. This allows Max to bring the Ur-Dragon out from the command zone onto the field, and he moves straight to combat. He swings Drakoseth and the Ur-Dragon at Mathieu to attempt to try and get around the Fog Bank. He gets his on-attack trigger from Drakoseth, dealing 4 to Mathieu's face, 3 to Mika, and 3 to me. Max then gets to resolve his Ur-Dragon trigger, drawing 2, and he puts into play an Embercleave and attaches it to the Ur-Dragon. Before moving to blocks, Mathieu then casts a Vraska's Fall, forcing us each to sacrifice a creature. This has Mika sacrificing the False Prophet, which exiles all their creatures, but does bring back my Solemn Simulacrum and Max's Drakoseth because of the coin counters. I draw a card from having to sacrifice the Solemn Simulacrum anyway, but Max's combat is basically fizzled at that point. With nothing else, he casts a Skyshroud Claim, going to find 2 forests, and passing. Mika draws and plays Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite. Going to combat, the Solemn goes at Mathieu and steals the initiative, and Mika sends Drakoseth at Max. Drakoseth deals 4 to me, and 3 to Mathieu, and 3 to Max, and no one declares any blocks. The creatures then connect, and Mika takes the initiative, going into the Undercity to grab a basic. During Mika's upkeep, Mathieu casts Search the Count's Castle, which is just a fancy copy of Thirst for Discovery. He doesn't pay the 1, and I get to draw a card and move to his turn. Mathieu draws and plays an island. He casts a Decanter of Endless Water, and then casts Precipitous Drop on Elesh Norn, venturing into the Undercity again, and goading Drakoseth. After that, Mathieu passes to me. I've got a Hinterland Harbor for turn, and cast Brenard, and once he's out, evoke a Wave Sifter. It comes in and makes 2 clue tokens, and then sacrifices itself, which gets exiled by Brenard, and comes back in as a food golem and makes 2 more clues. I then pass to Max. Max draws and plays Sarkhan Soul of Flame. He then plays Furcrag, which Sarkhan becomes a copy of, and then casts Rivaz of the Claw. Max then plays a mountain and uses Rivaz's ability to recast the Hellkite Courser from his graveyard, which as it comes in, brings back the Ur-Dragon into play. Going to combat, Max swings the Ur-Dragon at Mika and 2 Furcrags at Mathieu. Max goads Drakoseth with Furcrag, and then draws 3, and puts a Wrathful Red Dragon into play thanks to the Ur-Dragon's ability. Mika and Mathieu then each take their damage, and after that, Max returns the Ur-Dragon to the command zone and passes. Mika draws and plays a Plains. He then goes to combat and is forced to swing Drakoseth at me, and he swings the Solemn at Mathieu. Drakoseth deals 4 to Max, 3 to Mathieu, and 3 to me, and I block Drakoseth with my Wave Sifter token, and then sacrifice it and gain 3. After combat, Mika overloads a Dam. Everything dies, but Elesh Norn comes back since it had the coin counter onto it, and Mika then follows up by casting a Darksteel Ingot, and then a Demonic Tutor. At this point, I counter the Demonic Tutor with Swansong. Mika then goes to his end step, and attempts to put a coin counter onto Elesh Norn again, but Mathieu responds with the target by using Rapid Hybridization to take her out. Mathieu draws and plays an island for turn. He then recasts Rilsa Rael, gaining the initiative again, making a skeleton token and passing to me. My turn has me playing a Plains, and I then cast Supreme Verdict, wiping the board. Once that's done, I cast Darksteel Forge and pass to Max. Max draws and casts an Urza's Incubator, naming dragons as it comes in. He then plays Scourge of the Throne and Thrakkus the Butcher, and then plays a land for turn and passes to Mika. Mika draws, playing Angel of Despair, and as it comes in, blows up the Endercleave. He follows up with an Orzhov Enforcer, and then moves to his end step, putting the coin counter from Athreos onto the Angel. Mathieu finishes the Undercity on his upkeep, and reveals his top 10, and reveals Tomb of Horrors Adventurer, which comes in with temporary hexproof and 3+1/+1 counters, plus sends him back into the Undercity. This has him finding a basic to hand, and he then draws for turn, and plays an island. He then recasts Rilsa Rael, moving further into the Undercity, and scrying 2. He then moves the Swiftfoot Boots over onto Rilsa, and passes to me. I draw, and play an island, and then cast Chord of Calling, putting 6 into the X. This gets me a Cyberdrive Awakener, and all of my non-creature artifacts become 4/4s with flying, and I go to combat. I swing all of my treasure tokens at Mika, and he blocks one of them with the Angel, but still takes 12. With nothing else, I pass. Max draws and casts Kindred Discovery, choosing Dragon again. Going to combat, he swings both Thrakkus and the Scourge of Throne at me. Their powers double from Thrakkus' ability, and Max gets an extra combat step from the Scourge of Throne as well. and I take the hit and drop to 4. For his second combat, Max swings the Scourge of Throne at Mathieu, and Thraxus goes at Mika, doubling their already doubled power again. Mika blocks Thraxus with Athreos, and the Angel of Despair, while Mathieu just dies. But not before Max takes the initiative from Mathieu. With Mika's Angel of Despair dying, because it has a coin counter, it comes back in and kills the Scourge of the Throne. In his post-combat main phase, Max then casts Dragon Speaker Shaman, and then Scourge of Valkis. He then plays a command tower, and casts a Tarka World Render. He then passes turn. Mika draws, and we remember the Scourge of Valkis triggers, which deals 1 to Mika's face, and 2 to his Orzhov Enforcer, giving him a Spirit token. Going to combat, Mika swings the Angel and Spirits at Max, who takes the 6, and Mika gains the initiative. After combat, Mika then casts Sunfall, exiling all creatures, and making a 6/6 Incubator token. With nothing else, Mika passes. I draw, and play Tribute to the World Tree, and then cast Foundation Breaker. As it comes in, I destroy the Guardian Project, and put 2+1/+1 counters onto the Foundation Breaker, and then pass turn. Max draws, and plays Lightning Greaves. He then casts the Ur-Dragon, and moves the Greaves onto it, and then plays a Training Center as his land for turn. Going to combat, Max swings the Ur-Dragon at me, and just draws, and then puts out an Ancient Bronze Dragon into play. I die to the damage, and after combat, Max casts a Herald's Horn, and names Dragon again. He then moves the Lightning Greaves onto the Ancient Bronze Dragon, and passes to Mika. Mika draws and plays Core Haven. He then plays Drana and Linvala, and then moves to his end step, pointing a coin counter onto them, and passing. Max draws and plays an Alchemist Refuge. He then casts a Crux of Fate, destroying all non-dragons, but Drana and Linvala come back thanks to the coin counter. Moving to combat, Max swings both of his dragons at Mika, and he gets to draw 2 cards and then put Lathless into play with the Ur-Dragon's trigger. Mika then moves to block the Ancient Dragon with Drana and Linvala, and then uses Core Haven on the Ur-Dragon. Max responds to this, activating Alchemist Refuge, and flashes out a Shamanic Revelation, drawing 3 and gaining 12. Sadly, he can't stop the Core Haven ability, so Mika takes no damage. In his post-combat main phase, Max then plays a Farseek and passes. Mika continues through the Undercity, making a treasure token and then drawing for turn. He casts a Final Judgment, exiling all creatures, and then pays to transform the Incubator into a Phyrexian token. Mika then goes to combat, and swings the Incubator at Max for 6. In his second main phase, he then casts Reanimate, bringing a Wrathful Red Dragon back from Max's graveyard. After that, Mika puts a coin counter onto the Wrathful Red Dragon, and passes to Max. Max draws, and recasts the Ur-Dragon. He once more puts the Lightning Greaves onto it, and then casts Sarkhan the Mad. He then moves to combat, and swings the Ur-Dragon at Mika. Mika chumps with the Wrathful Red Dragon, and with the Wrathful Red Dragon taking 10, Mika gets the ability to deal 10 to Max's face. But Max responds to this, using Bolt Bend to redirect the damage to Mika, and wins the game. Game review time. This game was 1 hour, 26 minutes, and 29 seconds. I think this was a pretty good showing for the Ur-Dragon. Considering how much he costs, he actually came out quite a few times, and Maximus was able to attack often enough with him to get the ability and the trigger. And it probably didn't hurt that he had the Hellkite Courser, which is a dragon of itself, to help bypass casting his commander. Mika's Athreos deck is very grindy. Because of the way the deck works, he often wants to wipe the board, and he's got a ton of ways to do it in his deck, which can really slow down a game. Mathieu, on the other hand, is trying to rip through dungeons, and I love Rilsa Rael and the Initiative in general. I'd probably build her instead of Hampashar if I didn't have friends who already had her, because I think her trigger after completing a dungeon is incredibly strong. Unfortunately for Brenard, I didn't do a whole heck of a lot. The coolest thing I got to do was cast that Cyberdrive Awakener and make a bunch of my clue and food tokens into 4/4s. There are actually better decks that can do that though, so this didn't exactly feel very special. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.